In income tax laws, and our speaker for this session is CA Manoj Tiwari, who will be enriching us for next 2 hours. There are a lot of changes which have come to weed out the impact of this COVID-19, especially as far as possible on the assessee's life. So government has taken several measures which Manojta will definitely touch upon. And also definitely there will be the question answer session at the end of the session. Better to have it by using the chat option so that he can also come across to those, the speaker can come across to those questions. And nothing more to say. So we are back after a pause, after a solitary confinement, and our study circle is back in action now. And we are all here to hold our hand for knowledge dissemination. So with this note, I would request the convener of the study circle, CA Sumantra Guha, to speak few words on today's session. Sumantra da.
Sumantra, unmute yourself. Sumantra, unmute yourself. Sumantra, can you hear me? আছে না, আমি দেখছি আপনার এই নাম্বারে হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ আছে? আচ্ছা, আমাকে একটু SMS করে দিন, আমি দেখছি আপনাকে। হ্যাঁ,
We can't hear Sumantra.
Am I audible? Am I audible, Dibayon?
Yes.
So in the meantime, I'll just take a few seconds. All the participants, a very good afternoon to you all. You can see on the screen, on the bottom of the screen, there is an option, participants. So if you go there, you will find on the right side of the screen that all the name of the participants will be appearing and your name will be on the top. So kindly go to whatever name is appearing for you. Go there, you will find an option more. Click on that. Option to rename yourself will come. Kindly mention your name and membership number there, both. So if you just see the way I have named myself, similarly you can go to the option and rename yourself. This will help us to record your attendance. Thank you.
Sumantra is not audible.
Yeah, please call him and let him. Hello. Yeah, please call him.
Audible ki? এখন কি audible?
Now, yes.
Yes.
Acha, okay.
Please
now,
come again.
yes. So I once again welcome you all to this first virtual meeting of the Accountants Library, which we did after a span, which we are holding after a span of 6 months. As you know, in the month of March, we were about to hold a seminar on bank audit and budget, but unfortunately, due to the spread of COVID-19, the institute had, on a pan-India basis, had requested all the POUs not to hold any programs with effect from 15th of March 2020, and hence we could not hold any program. But now we are back once again after, I wouldn't say a brief period of hibernation, but quite a long period of hibernation. And now we will be regularly holding 2 meetings every month. And we have started with this meeting. Today is the 8th of August. We will have another meeting in the end week of August. And similarly in the month of September and October also. We don't know how long this pandemic will remain. It is expected that we can have maybe physical meetings from January onwards. I don't know. At this point of time, no one can say anything about the future. But it appears that we will have to live with these virtual meetings for some time at least, for the next 3 to 4 months at least. And like today, we have 4 meetings lined up. I have 4 meetings lined up. We have really come into the virtual world. Like this meeting is on Zoom. There is another meeting which is on GoToWebinar. There is another meeting which is on GoToMeeting. And there is another meeting which is on GeoMeet. So you can understand how technology has really has come and spread its wings in our lives. And we have to live with it for the next, as I said, 3 to 4 months. So I once again thank everyone. I would especially like to thank Devan and Shumon, who has put in a lot of efforts. They are the technical advisors to this entire program. They have built the technical infrastructure for this. In fact, we are actually houseful. We have already 100 registrations. And since this platform, we are unable to take more than 100, we have not been able to include more people. Some more people were trying to get in. But from the next program onwards, we will definitely shift to a Zoom platform, but with the capacity of having more than 100 people, so that more and more people can come and can enjoy DCP programs. So I also would like to thank the president, who has, in fact, we had planned the first Zoom CP program in the month of July only. But for some reason or the other, for some technical issues, we could not come up in July. So we are here in August. I would like to thank the President Onimesh, the Deputy Convener CA Manish Tiwari, and all the executive committee members of the library also, who have also supported us. And we have and the reason for all their efforts have been that we have now 100 people in this CP program. So without wasting much words, I request the speaker of the day, CA Manoj Tiwari, to start speaking. He also has a PPT presentation, and I request Devan and Shumon to do the screen sharing also of the PPT presentation. So we can start immediately. We are already at 10 minutes past 2. So I think it is time to start. If Devan has something to say to the members who are joining, because I find that they are busy on the phone. Perhaps some people are not being able to connect or things like that, because we have 66 participants so far, but we have paid delegates of around 100. So if you have something more to say, or if you require to give any further clarification, you may also give before Manoj takes over. Thank you very much, all of you. It's over to Manoj.
Friends, I think you can already see the screen. The screen of the presentation is already shared. I would request you all to rename yourselves once again. Write your name and membership number both when you rename yourself. And if you face any problem during the program, please call us. And you can put your questions in the chat box. The chat option is also in the bottom of your screen. So with this, I would request Manoj sir to kindly start his deliberation.
Good afternoon. At the outset, let me thank the organizers for giving me thank the organizers for providing me with wonderful opportunity of interaction. And in particular, I thank Animesh, Suman Truda, Suman in particular. Basically, my topic for the day is very simple. Innocuous topic rather. It is not much complicated. Only I'll deliberate for around 90 minutes, 95 minutes. And after that, I'll take questions from the audience through chat box, through the direct also. Basically, I'll deliberate on recent changes in Income Tax Act, extensions under Income Tax Act, and changes in ITR forms. 3 topics only, 3 subtopics. So basically, first of all, let's understand what are the recent changes in Income Tax Act. The very first change which will come to our notice if you go through, for the assessment year, we are concentrating on assessment year 2021, previous year 1920. The first change is in section 44AB. I'm also sharing the screen so that the members of my alma mater can go through for their benefit. Section 44AB, as we know, clause A, talked about every person carrying on business shall, if his total sales. Can you mute all others because there is some sound?
Unmute yourself. I have multiple times requested all the participants to keep themselves in a mute mode because it makes disturbance to the speaker to speak on this topic. Manoja,
can I start? Hello, Suman.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So nice of you. Every person carrying on business shall, if his total sales, turnover, or gross receipt in business exceeds 1 crore rupees in any previous year. So basically, it was 1 crore from assessment year 2021. This 1 crore has been raised to 5 crores, meaning thereby gross receipt in the business exceeds 5 crore rupees. But this 5 crore limit will apply if and only if aggregate of all amounts received in cash do not exceed 5% of the said amount, and aggregate of all payments in cash do not exceed 5% of said payment. So let's understand this. If my turnover, let's understand this thing. Suppose my receipts 4 crore sales, out of which 15 lakh in cash. Partner has introduced 10 lakhs in cash. Loan 15 lakh by NEFT. So total receipt is 4 plus 10 plus 15, 425 lakhs. Out of that, cash is 15 plus 10, 25. So 425 into 5%, this cash of 25 lakhs exceeds 5% of 425 lakhs. The moment it exceeds, if you remember, my thing was that limit of 5 crore will apply if and only if aggregate of all amounts received in cash do not exceed 5% of said amount. So my total receipt is 425 lakhs. 5% of that comes to how much? 20, and 5% of 25 is 1.25. 21.25, where my actual receipt is 25 lakhs. So since my receipts in cash had exceeded 5% of total receipt, limit of 5 crore will not apply. Similarly for payments also. So limit of 5 crore will apply only if whether my cash receipts and both conditions must be fulfilled. If one of these is violated, 5 crore will not apply, then the limit of 1 crore will apply. So this is first thing. A big change, it's a mandatory change, and but limit is 1 crore, it is 5 crore if and only if total cash receipts do not exceed 5% of total receipt and cash payment do not exceed 5% of total. This is the first thing. Second change is section 194N. If you remember, members, this change was introduced by Finance Act number 2 of 2019 and it has been substituted. This section 194 had been substituted with effect from 1st July 2020. What is this section? Every person being a banking company or a cooperative society or a post office, who is responsible for paying amount, aggregating, which is responsible for paying any sum in cash exceeding 1 crore during the previous year to any person. So, if you are withdrawing money from bank account, whether from bank or cooperative bank or from post office, if you are withdrawing money, savings account, current account, whatever it is, if you are withdrawing money, withdrawing cash, and the total cash withdrawal exceeds rupees 1 crore during the previous year, then the bank, the payer bank has to deduct, then the payer bank has to deduct 2%. Please understand, 2% of the amount withdrawn exceeding rupees to 1 crore. This is the basic section. That is, whether when you are withdrawing money from bank, whether from savings account, current account, irrelevant it is. If you are withdrawing money from bank can be cooperative bank, commercial bank, or post office, and your withdrawals exceed 1 crore, then 2% of the amount exceeding 1 crore has to be deducted by the bank. Please understand, as per section 98, any deduction is income, but this deduction will not be treated as income. It has been provided in section 198. Listen, oh God, come on, there is a nagging sound.
এবার সবাইকে আবার আনমিউট করছি, বারেবার সবাইকে বলছি যে
I have already written in the chat box also,
sir. No
requesting
issue.
everybody to keep
No
the
issue,
microphone
sir.
in
No
mute
issue.
condition.
No issue.
Please carry on, Manoj.
Now, any amount deducted is treated as income in the hands of recipient. But please understand, section 190, suppose I have raised a professional fee bill on anybody, 1 crore, 5% is deducted, meaning I am getting only 95, but my income will be treated as 1 lakh rupees. Means even TDS is my income. But in case of this TDS, 194N TDS, this will not be treated as income of the, in case of deductor. In case of the person who is withdrawing money, this amount will not be treated as income under section 198. There is one more line in this. They have amended the section as I told you. In case of recipient who has not filed income tax returns for 3 assessment years, please understand. 1 crore is applicable in general. Now, in case of recipient who has not filed return for income tax return for 3 assessment years, for which time limit to file ITR under section 139 subsection 1 has expired. So if the recipient of cash has not filed ITRs for 3 assessment years, for which time limit to file the return has expired immediately preceding previous year, then in that case the limit of 1 crore will be reduced to 20 lakhs. If he withdraws beyond 20 lakhs, deduction will be 2%. From 20 lakh plus up to 1 crore, 2%. Beyond 1 crore withdrawal, 5% TDS. 5% TDS. So in case of recipient who has not filed return for 3 assessment years, then in his case 194N TDS will be 20%, 2%. Beyond 20 lakhs of cash withdrawn up to 1 crore, and if the withdrawal is beyond 1 crore, then TDS will be 5%. Now there are few questions on this. What about if I file my returns during the year after getting condonation from CBDT under section 119? Then naturally this clause, or I am filing belated return, but the belated return time is also specified. Or if I am a new assessee, what will happen? As per my knowledge, if new assessee is there, means he has not filed a return, he has got PAN, he is a new assessee, for him 1 crore should apply. In that case, in his case, 20 lakhs should not apply. So 194N. That was 194N for you. The very next one is 194O. This is again basically government is trying to catch the persons who are not filing return. You see what about this section 194N? The section starts with, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in any of the provisions of part B of this chapter. So, notwithstanding anything to the contrary. So, any other thing, this is a notwithstanding provision, notwithstanding anything to the contrary, where sale of goods or provision of services of an e-commerce participant is facilitated by a e-commerce operator. You see, now there are two terms. One is e-commerce participant and one is e-commerce operator. Through the e-commerce operator means the person who maintains digital or electronic facility or platform. Then in that case, such e-commerce operator shall, at the time of credit of sale or services or both to the account of e-commerce participant or payment, whichever is earlier, deduct income tax at the rate of 1% of gross amount of such sale or services. So such sale or services or both. So let's understand, sir. First we have to, this provision will apply from 1st October 2020. So it will apply from 1st October 2020. Now suppose you are selling your goods, you are trader, you are selling your goods on Flipkart. Suppose you are vendor of you deal in medicine and you are selling the goods on Flipkart, and so naturally Flipkart will become e-commerce operator, Flipkart will be treated as, Flipkart is maintaining a digital platform or electronic facility where you are dealing in your goods, you are selling your goods. So the moment Flipkart is crediting your account or paying to you, whichever is earlier, Flipkart will deduct 1%. So any e-commerce operator, while paying to e-commerce participant, will deduct 1%. Now there are few questions. In case of individual and HUF, if your total sale does not exceed 5 lakhs, in case of individual or HUF, if total sale does not exceed 5 lakhs and you have furnished your PAN, no TDS will be deducted. So, e-commerce operator can pay to individual or HUF, can credit their account or pay without deducting TDS, provided the sale by individual or HUF on digital platform does not exceed 5 lakhs and individual or HUF has furnished its permanent account number to the e-commerce operator. So whether you are selling goods, whether you are selling services, whether or you are selling both, in that case, but if you do not furnish your PAN, then tax deduction will be at the rate of 5%. If you do not furnish your PAN, tax deduction will be at the rate of 5%. Now there is one exemption for e-commerce operator. If e-commerce operator is receiving amount, please understand, this section talks about that if e-commerce operator is paying to e-commerce participant. Now exemption is given that if e-commerce is hosting advertisement, if e-commerce operator is hosting advertisements or providing any other service with respect to sale or services or both, e-commerce operator is hosting, in that case TDS will not be deducted, because this section talks about payment to e-commerce participants. So sir, this is one section. If section 197 benefit is available, means if the trader approaches his AO and he gives him a lesser rate of deduction certificate, then naturally e-commerce operator will deduct at a lesser rate. Very simple. Another one. Big change. This is not cosmetic. This is big change, sir. Look at it. 206C 1G, 206 section is 206C, subsection is 1G, clause A and clause B. There are two changes. First thing being, let's understand. First I will talk about 206C, subsection 1G, clause A. Every person being an authorized dealer, let's understand, every person being an authorized dealer who receives an amount for remittance out of India from a buyer, being a person remitting such amount out of India under liberalized remittance regime of Reserve Bank of India. So 1G clause A, every person being an authorized dealer who receives an amount for remittance out of India from a buyer being a person remitting such amount out of India under liberalized remittance regime of the Reserve Bank of India. This is 1GA. What is this? Here the limit is 7 lakhs. Means if you are remitting out of India up to 7 lakhs rupees, no issue. But if you remit out of India through authorized dealer beyond 7 lakhs rupees, TCS rate, tax collection at source rate, TCS rate will be 5%. Let's understand this. Suppose your son is studying in Singapore. You have to remit 60 lakhs rupees a year to Singapore. So you are remitting beyond 7 lakhs. So 60 minus 7, 53 into 5%. 53 lakhs into 5%. This will be additional amount collected by authorized dealer. Please understand. Because you have to remit 60 lakhs. So 60 lakhs you have to remit. So that amount plus 60 minus 7, 53 into 5% will be collected by authorized dealer. Now let's complicate it further. What if I have taken a loan of 60 lakhs rupees to remit to my son for his studies in Singapore? I have taken a loan of 60 lakhs rupees. Government, initially it was 5%, but later on, after memorandums were submitted from across India to CBDT, they reduced the TCS rate. In that case, that if you are remitting money for education, in that case it will be 0.5%, and a remittance is out of loan taken from financial institution. So if I have taken 60 lakhs rupees of loan for remitting to Singapore for the education of my son, in that case, the TCS rate to be collected by authorized dealer will be 0.5% beyond 7 lakhs. So this is one point. Now the part B. Yes. Hello. Every person, 1G clause, subsection 1G clause, subclause, clause B. Every person being a seller of an overseas tour program package who receives any amount from a buyer, being the person who purchases such package, shall at the time of debiting the amount payable by the buyer or at the time of receipt of such amount from the said buyer, whichever is earlier, collect from a buyer a sum equal to 5%. So if you wish to travel abroad, you are buyer of overseas tour package. In that case, the person who is selling the tour package to you, the person who is selling overseas tour package to you will collect is TCS, tax collection at source, will collect 5% of the package value. Suppose you are paying him 4 lakhs rupees. So we will also collect 5% of 4 lakhs, that is 20,000. He will also collect 5% of 4 lakhs, 20,000 rupees. So, can I make you comprehend? Now there is 1H, subsection 1H. Every person being a seller, who receives any amount as consideration for sale of any goods of the value or aggregate of such value exceeding 50 lakhs in any previous year, shall at the time of receipt of such amount collect from the buyer 0.1% of the sale consideration exceeding 50 lakhs. So the moment he receives a value exceeding 50 lakhs, so seller, what are the conditions over here? Subsection 1H, conditions are very simple. The seller turnover should be exceeding 10 crores. He should receive from the buyer of goods more than 50 lakhs rupees, and in that case, the TCS rate to be collected by the seller will be 0.1%. 0.1%. So please, sir, understand this clause. Foreign remittance through LRS, liberalized remittance scheme of RBI. Any amount you are remitting beyond 7 lakhs, 5%. If it is for education, then also 5%. But if it is educational loan, if you have taken loan and you are remitting, in that case, 0.5%. So it is bit tough. So for any student who is availing loan, some students take loan themselves. He may not have taxable income in India, but the student has to file his return, his income tax return, to claim the refund. Or suppose a salaried individual remits money for overseas education of son. His salary may be, his salary is subjected to TDS. Entire salary is subjected to TDS. So in order to claim refund of TCS, he has to file his return. But when you are talking about overseas tour package, there is no limit, there is no basic exemption. Even if you are paying 5,000 rupees for overseas tour package, TCS to be collected is 5,000, whether it's 5,000 or 5 lakhs. There is no basic exemption. There it was 7 lakhs. Here it is 5% of the package, overseas tour package. So I hope I'm clear. And 1H, as I told you, seller turnover should exceed 10 crores. The collection should be, if the TCS on sale consideration of any goods exceeding 50 lakhs in previous year, 0.1%. And if PAN is not furnished, 0.1% will become 1%. If PAN is not furnished by buyer, then 0.1% will become 1%. What are the exceptions, sir? If there is a car, if you are purchasing a car, then it is 1H will not apply. 1H is if your collection has to be more than 50. 1G overseas tour package. If the buyer is central government, state government, embassy, high commission, local authority as defined in section 10 clause 20, this will not apply. 206C1H will not apply. If buyer is already deducting TDS in some other section, 1H will not apply. So these were the recent changes in Income Tax Act. So I have stopped that part. Now ordinance. You remember, sir, Ordinance 2020 was published on 31st March 2020. And a notification has come, issued by CBDT on 24th of June 2020. So the lesser spoken about ordinance, the better. But we have to talk about it in detail because there are certain things which are not yet clear. This ordinance applies in respect of Wealth Tax Act, Income Tax Act, Prohibition of Benami Property Transaction Act, Finance Act 2004, Finance Act 2013, Black Money Act. These are the applicability. Now, in the ordinance, they said that where any time limit falls between 20th March to 29th June for completion or compliance of any action, that shall extend to 30th June. So if you cannot comply between 20th, any time limit which falls between 20th March 2020 to 29th June 2020, and it cannot be complied within the time frame, then you can complete it, you can comply it, because it was extended, date of compliance was extended to 30th June. Imagine you have got an assessment order issued by assessing officer, or you have got an appeal which was supposed to be appeal against that was appellate order. An appeal was supposed to be filed on 21st March. Due date was ending on 21st March. That could be filed till 30th June. Now, in the ordinance only, it was specified that this 30th June can be extended. Now, by the notification dated 24th June 2020, this 29th June has been extended to 31st December, and 30th June has been extended to, can you imagine, has been extended to 31st March. So we have got compliance time till 31st March. So any due date falling between 20th March to 31st December, please understand, any due date for completion or compliance of any action falling between 20th March 2020 to 31st December 2020. Any date falling between these, if those things cannot be done, those things can't be complied, then it can be complied till 31st of March 2021. So by one stroke, so the appellate order you have received, suppose on CIT appeal order you have received on 21st of February. That appeal was supposed to be filed on 20th March or 21st March. That order, that appeal was supposed to be filed on appellate order means 2 months time, 60 days. So 20th February means 2 months, 20th April to be very precise. So due date of filing appeal before tribunal was 20th April 2020. Now that appeal before tribunal, honorable tribunal, can be filed till 31st March 2021. They have extended the date. So this time limit, which has been extended by the notification dated 24th June, is only for completion of any proceeding. Please understand, it has been extended. The extension is in section 3, subsection 1 of the ordinance. In ordinance, in section 3, there was subsection 1 and there was subsection 2. Section 3, subsection 1 talked about completion of any proceeding or passing of any order, issuance of any notice, issuance of any notification, intimation, sanction, approval, filing of any appeal, reply, application or furnishing of any report. So this was for compliance. But subsection 2 to section 3 talked about payment of tax. Payment of any tax or levy. That has not been extended. Please understand. Payment of tax or levy has not been extended. If you look at ordinance, section 3, ordinance 2020, which was issued on 31st of March 2020, there were two parts to subsection 3. Section 3, subsection 1, which was for compliance. and section 3 subsection 2 was for payment of tax or levy. So regarding payment of tax or levy, there is no extension, meaning thereby if you are deducting TDS in the month of June, you have to pay by 7th of July. If you are collecting TCS in the month of June, you have to pay by 7th of July. Payment of tax has not been extended. Please understand. What has been extended is only, as I told you, appellate order, naturally, this assessment proceeding, which was supposed to be 148 notice. Assessment, 148 notice for assessment year 13-14 could have been issued by 31st March 2020, assessment year 13-14, 6 years. Now it could be issued up to 31st March 2021. That has been extended. Let's understand one more thing. Compliance is the moment I'm talking about compliance. Form number 61, form number 61A, form number 61B, pursuant to 114 B, C, D, E, G rules. I'm talking about rules, sir. You must be knowing specified transaction as per specified financial transactions. 285 BA, 285 BE, section BB, and rule 114B, 114C, 114D, 114E, 114F, 114G. Now they have given 114I. They have introduced 114I. So forms number 61 was to be deposited for year ending, for half year ending March 20 by 30th April. This form 61 now can be deposited till, can be furnished in the to the department till 31st March 21. Form number 61 has to be deposited by 31st May 2020 for year ending March 2020. Now it can be deposited till 31st March 21. So compliance dates have been extended. Payment of tax not extended. So I hope I am clear. ITR for assessment year 1920. It can be revised, deleted. Now both can be deposited till 30th September 2020. Earlier date was 31st July. Now they have extended to 30th September. So assessment year 1920, you must be seeing they have furnished 26 A's and furnished 26 A's. Form number 26 A's is in new avatar. You must have seen new form 26 A's. It contains everything, sir. So new form 26 says if you want to revise your return in pursuance to form number 26 A's, which has been uploaded on the website for the tax audit report. No, sir, they have specified the date for tax audit report. Assessment year 1920 extended from 30th June to 30th September. Due date of all income tax returns extended to 30th November 2020. Specific, if they say if it is Income Tax Act, due date for IT returns for assessment year 2020, tax audit due date extended to 31st October. Tax audit due date extended to 31st October. TDS TCS statement for March 2020. Specific, they have said if it is by government, extended to 15 July. By other than government, 31st July. What about other quarters? This is for March quarter they are saying. What about June quarter TTS? What about June quarter, June 2020 quarter TDS, TCS, September quarter TDS, quarter 2, when this will be submitted, what is the due date, TCS, TDS, TCS due date is 31st July for first quarter, Q1. It can be submitted till 31st of March because compliance date have been extended. So quarter 1, quarter 2, but not quarter 3, sir, because quarter 3 means December quarter TDS. So December quarter TDS is, what is the due date? 31st of Jan. So any date falling between 20th March to 31st December. Any due date falling between 20th March to 31st December. Compliance extended till 31st March. But quarter 3 TDS return, quarter 3 TCS return, what is the due date? 31st Jan. It is not falling between 20th March to 31st December. Since it is not falling from 20th March to 31st December within this band, naturally, the due date for quarter 3 December, that is December 2020, due date is 31st of Jan. So since it is not within 31st December, due date is still 31st of Jan. That has not been extended to 31st March. Please understand. So June quarter, September quarter extended to 31st March, but 21. But December quarter has not been extended to 31st March. One more thing, sir. Investment, deposit, payment, acquisition, purchase, construction. Let's understand. Any investment in property, 54 to 54 GB, has been extended to till 30th September. Which assessment year, sir, I'm talking about? Of course, assessment year 2021, because you will file your return in this year for assessment year 2021, financial year 1920, no issue. So financial year 1920, any investment was to be made by 31st March. Suppose you are paying for a life insurance premium, your payment for life insurance premium. It has to be paid by 31st of March 2020 if you want to claim that in assessment year 2021. Now that can be paid till 31st July. Time is over. If you have not paid till 31st July 2020, you cannot claim in assessment year 2021. But for property, 54 to 54 GB, like capital gain scheme deposit or payment to a promoter, for financial year 1920, assessment year 2021 can be made till 30th September. Excuse me. If you have to commence production, naturally, the production of commencement of article or thing, if you want to claim section 10 AA, must have commenced between by 31st March 2020 during the financial year. This year it has been extended till 30th September 2020. Still you can claim section 10 AA. You can claim section 10 AA benefit for financial year 1920, assessment year 2021, if you commence manufacturing or production of articles or things or providing any services, if you can commence that by 30th September 2020. So, as I told you, sir, due date of payment of tax has not been extended. If you do not pay by 30th June, then if you pay by after 30th June, even interest waiver, it was not a waiver, lower rate of interest, it was 0.75% per month. Now it will be 1.5% per month. Interest will be at the rate of 1.5% per month. And naturally prosecution, everything will apply. Because if due date section, if you look at ordinance section 3 subsection 2, payment of tax or levy, that part is not covered in notification. In the notification dated 24th of June, this notification talks about section 3 subsection 1, only compliance update. They have not extended payment of tax or levy. So please remember, and if you can complete the job, then naturally no penalty will be levied, no prosecution shall be commenced in respect of such amount for the period of delay, because there is no delay technically. Yes, sir. What about advance tax? Advance tax 15 June. If you are paying by 30th June, then also 0.75% interest will apply. Because what is due date? 15th June. When you are paying, it was not specified. So naturally you have delayed it. And they have clarified that any delay will, whether it is for a month or part of a month, 0.75% interest will be levied. Advance tax. So even 15th June, first quarter, quarter 1, due date 15th June, you are paying by 30th June, there will be interest. TDS certificate for others, they have not given any date. Form 61A, I told you, sir, the due date has been extended. It is now 31st of March 2021. Form 61, 31st of March 2021. PM CARES Fund emergency. In case of the National Relief Fund is floated, our Honorable Prime Minister talked about PM CARES Fund. And naturally, the income of PM CARES Fund has been notified to be exempt under Section 1023C. And 100% deduction will be available to assessee if he donates to PM CARE Fund, and it's 100% reduction under Section 80B, subsection 2, clause A, subclause III, 3A. So PM CARES Fund, income of PM CARES Fund will be 100% exempt. Income of PM CARES Fund will be 100% exempt under Section 10, clause 23C. And if we donate, if the assessee donates to PM CARES Fund, it will be eligible for 100% reduction. There was a press release specifying that if you are making deduction for TDS and the payment is made to a resident, then suppose TDS rate is 5%, 25% reduction in TDS rate, 5% will become 3.75, 10% will become 7.5, 1% will become 0.75, 0.1% will become 0.075. So FM has made a press release. No notification has come for this. A press release has been issued saying on 30th May 2020, no ordinance 8 for this, saying that TDS and TCS rates will be reduced by 25%. So 5% minus 25%, 3.75%. 10% minus 25%, 7.5%. 1% minus 25% of 1%, naturally 0.75%. But there are anomalies. This is talking about payment to a resident and not for a salaried employee, not for salaried class. Because you must be understanding that salary class TDS is deducted by employer on his actual income. But for others, suppose we are professionals, they are deducting 10%. Suppose they are deducting 10%. So if they deduct 7.5%, your liability, we have to pay advance taxes in 4 installments. Everybody, every assessee has to pay advance tax in 4 installments. So you have to calculate what is your tax liability on 15th June. A certain percentage of that you have to pay. So if TCS rate is low, TDS rate is low, they are saying that more money will be available in the hands of assessee. But please understand, this is applicable for the period 14th of May 2020 to 31st of March 2021. This reduction in TDS and TCS rates is applicable for the period 14th of May 2020 to 31st March 2021. $206,180, it was 0.1%, it will become 0.075%. But if you are not furnishing PAN, in some cases you find that if you do not furnish PAN, TDS rate is 20%. There is no change in it. If you do not furnish PAN, the rate will remain at 20%. In case of salary, as I told you, it is for non-salaried people. Non-salaried assessee. Section 192, no reduction in TDS rate. 192A, premature withdrawal from EPF, no reduction in TDS rate. 194B or BB, lottery and horse race rates have not been reduced. 194N, cash withdrawal rates have not been reduced. 1G-A, foreign remittance rates have not been reduced. Yes. ITR, and there is one more big change, 269 SU, if you remember, you got to maintain digital mode of receipt. But in case of assessee who is receiving 95% of aggregate receipt by any mode other than cash, and his transactions are B2B transactions, business to business transactions, in that case he may not have to prepare, he may not have digital mode of receipt, he may not arrange for digital mode of receipt. Yes. Oh, sorry. Now, key changes in ITR forms. They have changed ITR forms. I won't be covering total changes, entire set of changes in ITR forms. But there is one big change, sir. The change is, let me first tell you, the change in ITR forms, one big change. We remember ITR income tax return acknowledgement form. Till in assessment year 1920, if you remember, in ITR forms there was a change. The change was very simple. Change was what they have done. If it was not verified, if income tax return form which was submitted on the website was not verified, then in the watermark it was written not verified. This year, income tax return acknowledgement form, we popularly know that as ITRV, has been changed drastically. From assessment year 2021 onwards, they'll be furnishing two types of income tax return acknowledgement form. One will be income tax return verification and other will be income tax return acknowledgement form. Let me tell you, if the return is not verified, please understand, if income tax return is not verified, what does it mean, sir? If income tax return is not verified means either through EVC, electronic verification code, you have not verified. How you can verify through electronic verification code? Through Aadhaar numbers, you can verify. Through your bank account, you can verify. Through Demat account, you can verify. So if it is not verified through electronic verification code, or it has not been verified by attaching digital signature, it has not been verified by attaching digital signature, or you can verify it by just you can upload without signing, and then you subscribe it physically, and send it to Bangalore. Bangalore will process it, and after that it is treated as verified. So until and unless your income tax return form is not verified, what you will get from the website is only income tax return verification form. What it will possess, for your information, income tax return verification form will possess your personal details and verification part. I repeat, income tax return verification form will only possess your personal details and verification part. Meaning thereby it will not, there will be no depiction of your income, no depiction of your tax liability, no depiction of TDS, TCS, meaning thereby computation part of your income, excuse me, computation part of your income will not appear in income tax return verification. The moment it is verified either through EVC or through DSC, digital signature certificate, or by attaching the physical signature and sending it to Bangalore for further processing, the moment it is processed by Bangalore, so there are three ways: EVC, DSC, and sending of income tax return verification form after subscribing it to Bangalore, and they will process it. After that, you can download. You can download after verifying, and then you will get income tax return acknowledgement form. So this year, till last year, it was different. Now the verification form. Do you remember, sir, prior to 2006, this e-return came in the year 2006. Prior to that, until and unless return form was signed, all pages annexed to the return were signed, they never used to accept at income tax return counters. Because subscribing, assessee must subscribe to the return. Assessee must subscribe his return. Assessee must put his initials or signature on the return. But what was happening in e-return? We were not verifying it. We were just uploading it. We are not sending it to Bangalore for further processing after putting our signature, or we were not doing it through EVC. We were neither doing it through signature, DSC. So until and unless it was verified, it is useless. So this year they have changed. They have changed the system. You will have two types: income tax verification form income tax return acknowledgement form. Acknowledgement form you can only get after verifying the return. That is one big change. You know your returns, ITR 1, ITR 1, ITR 2 and 3, ITR 4, ITR 5, ITR 6, ITR 7. ITR 1, very simple. Who can file ITR 1? Who can file ITR 1? ITR 1, individuals can file. Only individuals can file ITR 1. Only resident individuals can file ITR 1, meaning thereby, if you are a resident but not ordinarily a resident, or you are a non-resident, you cannot file ITR 1. You have to file ITR 2. If you have business income, you cannot file ITR 1. If you have more than one house, you cannot file ITR 1. If you have capital gains, you cannot file ITR 1. If you have lottery income, you cannot file ITR 1. If you have any income under section 68 to 69, that is under section 115 BBE, you cannot file ITR 1. So, ITR 2, any person, individual, HUF, can file ITR 2 and 3. ITR 2 and 3. Even just imagine, non-resident can file ITR 2. Resident but not ordinarily a resident can also file ITR 2. ITR 4, a firm can file, but LLP cannot file. A firm, partnership firm can file ITR 4, but LLP cannot file ITR 4. ITR 5, firm can file, AOP can file, BOI can file, cooperative society can file. ITR 6, companies can file, except the companies which are charitable companies, section 25 companies in 56. ITR 7, charitable exempt entities. Business entities, you know, ITR 3, ITR 4, and 5, 6, 7. So first a brief about it. Now there is a new check. They have said in this year they introduced this stuff, that a new check is there in form number 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is not applicable to firm and company. What is the check, sir? They have said that if person, 3 conditions are there, any of the 3 conditions are fulfilled, although you may not have income which is not higher than maximum amount chargeable to tax. Suppose basic exemption limit for individual is 2.5 lakhs. Your income is not more than 2.5 lakhs. Means you are not supposed to file your return. But if any one of these 3 conditions are fulfilled, you have to file your return. They have amended, they have brought in 7th proviso. They have brought in 7th proviso to section 139 subsection 1. What is the proviso? If person have deposited more than 1 crore in current account, if person have deposited more than 1 crore, more than 1 crore, just imagine, sir, more than 1 crore in his current account, whether by way of cash or by way of check or by way of NEFT, whether you have taken loan, if the amount deposited in the current account is more than 1 crore, or if you have incurred foreign travel expenditure either on yourself or of any other person, please understand, or you have incurred foreign travel expenditure, whether in foreign currency or not is irrelevant, please understand. If you have incurred foreign travel expenditure either on yourself or on any other person, or you have spent 1 lakh rupees or more than a lakh of rupees on electricity. Now let's understand. This is, as I told you, sir, this proviso, 7th proviso to section 139(1)(b) is not applicable to company and firm. This 7th proviso is not, because you must be knowing, for company no income limit, no basic exemption limit. For firm there is no basic exemption limit. Companies and firm have to file their returns if they are doing business or whether they are not doing business. So this will be applicable for CSCs other than firm and companies if they have deposited more than a crore in current account or have incurred 2 lakh rupees, more than 2 lakh rupees on foreign travel or more than 1 lakh of rupees on electricity. If you have incurred that amount, suppose electric bill is not in your name, it's in the name of landlord, but you have proof that you have paid more than 1 lakh on electric charge. Your son has gone abroad, has visited UK. You incurred 2.3 lakh rupees. You have not visited. Your son has visited. You have incurred expenditure. If you have paid out of your bank account or whatever mode, if you have paid, then you have to file your return. You have to file your return if any one of these conditions are fulfilled, whether your income is beyond basic exemption limit or not is irrelevant. So 7th proviso to section 139 subsection 1 clause B bounds you to file your income tax return even if your income does not exceed basic exemption limit. This is one point, sir. In ITR 2, they have talked about directorship of companies or holding of equity shares in unlisted companies. There they have added type of company, whether you are director in domestic company or foreign company, whether you are holding shares, unlisted shares in domestic company or foreign company. So earlier this was not there. Type of company was not given. Now they have added this feature, meaning thereby you have also to disclose whether the company in which you are director is a foreign company or domestic company, and the holding of your unlisted equity shares in unlisted, you are holding equity shares in unlisted company. That unlisted company is whether domestic company or foreign company. Sir, you remember one thing, section 112A, remember? I'll give you a brief about it. 112A. Sir, by the Finance Act 2018, long-term capital gain which was exempt on equity shares. Now, it is coming to your mind. Long-term capital gain which was exempt on equity shares was brought to tax. Remember? So they said that market value as on 1st Feb 2018. If there is any gain on the equity shares held by you or mutual fund units of equity oriented mutual funds or units of business trust on which STT, Security Transaction Trust, has been paid, If there is any gain from the date of purchase till 1st of February, if there is any gain, that much gain will be exempt. So they have introduced a new schedule, 112A, for residents. Please understand, it is only applicable to residents, because long-term capital gain on sale of equity shares in a company, or on sale of unit of equity-oriented mutual fund, or on sale of unit of a business trust on which STT has been paid, is now taxable at the rate of 10%. This section 112A was brought in White Finance Act 2018. Please understand, this will be another bone of contention. Now you have to furnish. Last year this schedule was there. They said you can fill the schedule on totality basis. 8 companies, what is the cost of those 2 shares? What is the total sales value? For different company you add up. Now you have to furnish it ISIN wise, share wise, company wise. Please understand the problem. Last year this was waived. It was brought in. Schedule 112A was brought in last year. It was waived last year. We were very happy. But problem, one time they have introduced. This time the problem will be there. You have to furnish this schedule 112A, ISIN wise, share wise, and this is applicable for resident. Now, for non-resident also, this schedule had been introduced, 115AD. They have also introduced it for non-resident. So please understand, for resident, and mind you, it is ISIN wise, company wise. Now you cannot add up total cost of acquisition, total sale, and this is my gain or loss. No, nothing doing. ISIN wise, share wise you have to give. For company wise, please understand. Separate disclosure for bank account in case of non-resident. For non-residents who are claiming income tax refund and not having bank account in India, if you are a non-resident and you are claiming income tax refund, no problem, you can claim. But you do not have any bank account in India, what to do? In that case, they have said that in forms 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Apart from 1, because 1 applies only to resident. We all know that ITR 1 is applicable only to resident. So 2, 3, ITR number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If there is a non-resident and he is claiming income tax refund, the resident, non-resident is claiming income tax refund, is not having any bank account in India. In that case, you have to furnish his SWIFT code. SWIFT code, name of the bank, he has to furnish SWIFT code, name of the bank, international bank account number, he has to furnish his international bank account number, IBAN. And mind you, in ITR 1 also, if you wish to choose more number of accounts, earlier we used to say, this is my bank account, we are able to credit my refund. You can choose more than one bank account. Now you have option to choose more than one bank account. You have option to choose more than one bank account and say that you can credit in any one of these accounts. You can request them to credit income tax refund in any one of these accounts, and they have the option. Far better. Good. Yes, as I told you when I was talking about the recent changes, investments like notifications, they said now that extensions are granted for making deposits. If you want to purchase, if you want to subscribe to new life insurance policies, you want to purchase new life insurance policies, and you could not pay your premium by March, you could pay premium by 31st of July. You want to pay to promoter, you could not pay by March, you could pay now by 30th September. So they have brought a schedule, details of investment, DI, new schedule, DI, capital D, capital I. DI has been introduced, details of investment for tax saving investment for financial year 1920. Here they have made a part, like till when you are paying, and date of payment, and naturally you can say that from 1st April to 31st July, from 1st April to 30th September. So you can always have you have to specify the time when you did pay. What is the time frame when you did pay? That is one point. In 356, you know that any interest on loan, if you have taken money from deposit taking NBFC, if you have taken a loan from deposit taking NBFC, or you have taken a loan or you have borrowed from a systematically important non-deposit taking NBFC. If you have borrowed money or loan, we have borrowed from deposit taking NBFC or systematically important non-deposit taking NBFC, and you do not pay the interest, then in that case, interest is disallowed under section 43B. Earlier, this was not there. 43B was only for statutory payment, as we used to understand, statutory payment only. So now, if you have taken loan from a deposit taking NBFC or systematically important non-deposit taking NBFC, in that case, that part of interest which has not been paid by you, before the due date of filing of return of income will be disallowed under section 43B as statutory payment in the garb of statutory payment. Now, in the nature of employment, please understand, in the nature of employment, they have included central government, state government. Earlier it was government category only. Earlier it was only government. Now it is central government, state government. Along with PAN, Aadhaar number of assessee can also be given. Representative assessee you can use in schedule S2, schedule SS2 also. Along with PAN, Aadhaar number can be used because they have made use of PAN along with Aadhaar. If you quote Aadhaar, it is okay. So PAN and Aadhaar are now synonymous, almost. Foreign source income and details of income from outside India and tax relief available. So in the schedules FSI and TR, they have made details of, and they have made a detailed schedule, foreign source income, details of income from outside India. They have made a detailed study, and they use details of yes, sir. For if you are doing insurance business, they have a new section. E has been added. Computation of income from life insurance business, referred to in section 115B In ITR 5 and ITR 6, they have, if you are doing insurance business, you can disclose. In ITR 7, so please understand, in ITR 7, basic personal information, 4 more declarations have been added in ITR 7. Now, as we all know, if you are a NGO, whether registered under 12A or 12AA or 1023C or ATG, you have to apply afresh. This finance bill introduced a clause that you are all NGOs, all trusts, all educational institutions registered under 1023C. Everyone has to apply afresh with effect from 1st June, and the process was supposed to be over by 31st. That was the clause. Now, due to pandemic, the 1st June has been, now they are saying that you can apply with effect from 1st October. So every person, every entity, whether registered under 12A, 12AA, ATG, 1023C, have to apply a fresh application with effect from now. The application date is 1st October. So they have made it from 1st October till 31st Jan due to pandemic situation. Earlier they were supposed to start the process from 1st June and complete it by 31st August. Now they are supposed to start the process of receiving applications by 1st and complete the process by 31st of December. So now they are having details of registration, whether application for registration is made as per new provision. You have to say yes or no. Section under which application is applied, date on which application for registration approval as per new is made, section of exemption opted for, under which section you opted for exemption. Sir, the last part of my speech, I will deliberate on new Form 26. It's very crucial. It is assuming significance in view of the fact that now they have introduced new rule, section rule 114I. Through amendment, they have not amended. It was 114H till 114H we have. They have brought a new rule 114I. What rule 114I says? And look at your Form 26 says now. PAN, Aadhaar also. Just imagine. It will have PAN also, Aadhaar number also. Aadhaar number. Name, mobile number, email address. This is part A. Just part A. Now look at the information stuff. Earlier one we had. There are two things I want to emphasize. You also had something about information relating to specified financial transactions. And last item, any other information in relation to sub-rule 2 of 149. These two are very vital for us. Let's understand. Let's just concentrate for around 10 minutes maximum. I'll not take much of your time because there will be question answer session also. I hope around 35 chats are there, must be 15-20 questions must be there. So that will also take some time. So 26As they have revised and revised in a big way. What is the way? Why they have done it? What do you think? My take on this is very simple. All the details relating to OCC, and they have told you, they have said that now the form will be revised every 3 months. Like they have said in this way, that whatever information the authority possesses, whatever information authority gets, must upload it within a period of 3 months. Whatever information comes to assessee must be uploaded in Form 26A within a period of 3 months. Meaning thereby, now 26A is not a static form. It has become a dynamic form. One more thing. Any type of specified business transaction, please understand, sir, specified business transaction, 114D, 114E, 114F. I'm talking about rules. If you have subscribed to shares costing more than 10 lakhs, subscribed to debentures costing more than 10 lakhs, you have deposited more than 50 lakhs in your bank current account, you have purchased property more than 30 lakhs rupees. Everything will be reflecting in this. Please understand. Because they have made it mandatory for the reporting authority, for the reporting entity. The reporting entity will be now penalized. You look at 285BB. Reporting entity is now being penalized if they do not submit. They have also power of correction. One more thing, look at item number 7, serial number 7. Any other information in relation to sub-rule 2 of rule 149. Please understand, sir, what this. They say that if department gets any information under DTAA from abroad, or there is a case against you, there is a suit against you under Benami transaction, or there is a suit against you in Black Money Act. If there is any suit against you in Benami transaction, that will also be appearing in 26A. If you have deposited more than 50 lakhs in your current account, that will be appearing in 26A. You please understand, this year, when they are talking about revising, there was a notification. They said that we see that sometime assessee forgets what the business it has done, what is the financial transactions, what are the transactions which the assessee has done. So in order to aid assessee, help assessee, they are saying that you revise your return for assessment year 1920, because we have revised 26As. They are saying that we have revised 26As for assessment year 1920. If you wish to avail the opportunity, now the time is till 30th September. So you can revise your return for assessment year 1920 based on 26As which has been uploaded, revised and uploaded for assessment year 1920, containing all the details which might be of use to the assessee. And they said that they will start campaign for this. I don't know why they could not start the campaign. It will be through advertisements on media, radio and TV and newspapers. So this 26As is a big change, sir, a real big change. It will be a game changer, because this section 90, 149 sub rule 2, Any information which authority is getting, any information which the authority has got under Section 90, Section 90A, Black Money Act, whatever information, and mind you, specified business transactions. Everything will be uploaded. Everything will be uploaded on the website, and it is for you to judge whether to file your return, revise your return. Now I conclude my deliberation, and I wish to take questions which are there on the chat box.
Thank you, Manoj.
Can I raise the questions one by one?
Please carry on.
Suman.
Sir.
Yeah. Bolun, Manoj.
Suman.
Bolun.
Devayan.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Devayan, let Manoj take
Suman.
questions as he likes.
Can I
That will save time also.
Suman, you are not audible.
Sir,
Manoj,
I have finished my deliberation, Suman.
Yeah.
Now I wish to take questions.
yeah, we can hear you, Manoj.
Yeah.
Hello.
Manoj, can you hear me?
Devayan, yes. Devayan, you are not audible.
না মনোজ তোমার চ্যাট বক্সে তো কোশ্চেন গুলো এসছে হ্যাঁ দেবায়ন একটা করে পড়েও দিতে পারে তুমি খালি উত্তর দিলে বা তুমি নিজে পড়ে দিলে যা বোঝো বেশ কিছু কোশ্চেন তো আছে অলরেডি দেবায়ন তুমি তাহলে পড়ে দাও না তাহলে নাকি
উনি বোধহয় শুনতে পাচ্ছেন না আমাদের কথাটা আমি একবার ফোন করি 1 মিনিট
মনোজ শুনতে পাচ্ছ কি
Yes.
হ্যাঁ তুমি তাহলে দেবায়ন তাহলে চ্যাট বক্স থেকে কোশ্চেন গুলো পড়ে দিক শর্ট করে তাহলে তুমি উত্তরগুলো দিয়ে যাও
হ্যাঁ
ঠিক আছে ও শুনতে পেয়েছে দেবায়ন শুনতে পেয়েছে স্টার্ট কর
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, Devayan.
Yes, sir. So one question that was there, I think from the members, it was regarding the last date of the tax audit report. Since there has been
31st October.
Right.
Manoj, a little bit loud. It's not audible.
A bit louder.
Yeah.
Now it's okay.
হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে এবার
Okay.
Yes, next question.
বলো দেবায়ন বলো
Okay, there was another question whether 206C 1H is also applicable for contractual work.
Sale of goods. 1/8 is for sale of goods.
Okay, so it is only on sale of goods and not on contractual work.
Yes. For sale of goods.
One question is there, can return be filed by persons who do not have Aadhaar number?
In my opinion, no. Kaushik Malli. Yeah, in my opinion, no. This year they have made it mandatory.
But Manoj, Aadhaar linking with PAN is till 31st March 2021. They have extended.
Look at ITR form, Sumantrodha. You do not furnish your Aadhaar number. They are disabling it.
Okay.
The moment you do not furnish your Aadhaar number, you are not able to generate the HTML form. That is.
Manoj, can't we use PAN again there? Instead of Aadhaar, we use PAN. They are interchangeable.
Like that's what is happening. PAN everybody is having. They are saying that Aadhaar must be submitted. Manishji.
Hey, but little while ago you mentioned that PAN and Aadhaar are interchangeable.
Yeah, interchangeable. But for ITR purposes, they are saying
Okay.
that Aadhaar must be mentioned.
Acha.
That is what the new form says. There
Okay.
must be some clarification. Some clarification
Okay.
must be there, because you see, the last date of you say, what do you say? Last
Filing
date
of
of
Filing the return.
no, not filing the return, sir.
Aadhaar linking.
Aadhaar linking date is getting extended.
Yeah, 31st March
Now
21.
since you have extended Aadhaar linking date to next 31st March, how can you bound?
That is what
That is what
the
I'm
query.
asking. That is what I'm saying.
Is the query is.
That
That
if
is
you
what
do
the
not
query is.
have Aadhaar, I will not allow you to file your form.
Yes, yes.
You can't say.
You cannot force.
You can't say that. That's what Manish Ji is looking at. That since
Yes,
that
yes.
linking has been extended,
Ah.
some clarification will be there. But till now it seems that if
Okay.
you do not furnish your Aadhaar, the HTML is not generated.
Maybe the utility is not updated as yet.
Yes.
Maybe.
Because last date was 31st March 2020.
Yes.
Na?
हाँ, तो उसके बाद तो then they've extended by 1 year.
One more question, Gaurav Hari Nayak.
हाँ.
Please explain 269 SU. Sir, last year provision, sir. 269 SU is very simple. Suppose I'm a trader. I'm receiving money. So I need to maintain, you say, Google Pay for receiving of money, Bheem for receiving of money. So I need to maintain digital mode of receipts. I need to maintain digital mode of receipt against my services or sale of goods. That's all about SU. SU said that you must maintain digital mode of receipt of money. If you do not maintain digital mode of receipt of money, with effect from November last year, 1st November, everyday fine was 5,000 rupees. But it was not implemented. Why? Because they could not specify that what are the digital mode of receipts. The last notification was hopefully in March or February. They specified digital mode of receipt. Amongst others, you can have these digital mode of receipt. But the problem was with big corporates. Suppose I am a contractor and I am only dealing in NHI. I construct roads or bridges. So should I maintain digital mode of receipt, because my entire receipt is coming from NHI through RTGS. My turnover is 900 crores. The entire amount is through RTGS. So this year they have changed that if 95% of your receipt, of your turnover is B2B and you do not receive cash, you may not have digital mode of receipt. That's what he was intending to. Next question.
Sir, there was this question. Now they have allowed the e-verification for the last few years. So whichever return was not validated.
Yes.
Now the question that the member has asked is that they have not enabled this in the income tax login portal. So
physical verification is only option, correct?
Only option. So we have to
Only
sign
option.
and send it to Bangalore.
Yeah, you have to send. Best way.
Continuing that.
Yes.
Continuing that other related query, one member has asked, what will happen for the non-residents who do not have Aadhaar?
Again, non-resident, in case of non-resident, there is exception given, sir. Non-resident may not have Aadhaar.
So those returns will get
and they can file their return. No issue.
One question. One person being a resident Indian purchasing an immovable property flat from a non-resident Indian overseas citizen having PAN and OCI card. What would be the required compliances from TDS point of view?
Basically, there is he is talking about 194 1D. नहीं मनीष जी?
ये 195 में जाएगा ना सर?
हाँ,
विथहोल्डिंग टैक्स 195 4 से मतलब ही नहीं है इसको.
हाँ, उसको मतलब नहीं है, वहाँ वाला अप्लाई नहीं होगा.
ना.
तो 195 में आइए,
और पैन नहीं होगा तो 20% काटना पड़ेगा।
20% काटिए 195 में।
वही।
नहीं, आप बोल रहे हैं ना पैन है,
पैन है तो फिर 195 के हिसाब से कट जाएगा। आप पे कर लीजिए एओ को, और जो whatever tax
you have to obtain a lower tax deduction
Yes.
certificate.
AO will determine that and he will give you.
इसका पैन है बच्चा
तो ठीक है।
हाँ,
Okay.
non-resident can file return.
So in the chat box, I do not find any other query as such. I hope
There
I'm
are
not
no
missing
queries.
out any question.
Wow.
No, one question is coming up.
Now one question has come. Are there any specific cases where application for condonation of delay in ITR filing and approval under section 1192B is to be given by the CIT?
मनीष जी कहाँ है?
If the board has empowered that CIT, then only it can be done by the CIT. Otherwise, normally board entrusts this thing to the CCIT.
No, sir, this is my question, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sir, principally, yes, Commissioner of the application has to be made to the before the Commissioner of Income Tax for condonation of delay and then allowed for return filing. So, is there? I just wanted to understand if there are any specific cases. Let's say my client is an individual and salaried person. He did not file the return. So, do we need to present a particular case or specific cases where only the approval can be sought after?
No, in 119, who is answering?
मनीष जी is answering.
No. Only thing is that you have to make out your own case. You have to explain why you were not able to file your return in time. Once you can explain it to the satisfaction of that principal CIT, then the ball is in his court. He has all the powers to give you extension for filing returns. You don't have to refer to any other case.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
There is another question in the WhatsApp group.
TDS return for fourth quarter. So fourth quarter specific date is given. Fourth quarter specific date is given. Fourth quarter date is 31st July. It is specified in the notification. So it cannot be extended till 31st December.
Sir, this is again the same in continuation with the question, the condonation of delay. I'm sorry to to extend it further for just one query.
Yeah. Please come.
Is the application required to be made only in the state where the earlier the return was filed? I mean the PAN data of the client was taken from another state, and since he's a salaried person, he has been shifted or transferred to another state in Assam this time. So does the application needs to be made to the in the state where earlier the return was filed, or the current state also can be, current principal office can be also be filed? I mean commissioner office of the state.
Sachin, your residence or your place of work is not material. Where is your jurisdiction? Income tax jurisdictional commissioner can only do this. Earlier you were in city X, now you are in city Y. But if your case records have been transferred to city Y principal CIT, then only he can do. Otherwise, it will be not of any use. You have to find your own principal CIT who has jurisdiction over your assessment. Only he can do this, nobody else.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Sachin.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Kalyan ji, Kalyan Kumar Sarkar, fourth quarter, you are saying that extended to 31st December. No. Fourth quarter return due there, your date has been extended to 31st July, and that is it. So you have to file it by 31st July. Yes. No question মানে দুটো জিনিস হয়।
Sir, there is one question in the
आप सवाई सब কিছু বুঝেছে।
There is one question in the WhatsApp group of this seminar. Self-assessment tax by senior citizen over rupees 10,000 is not required to be paid with interest if paid before due date along with the filing of the return. Is it also applicable now?
Yeah, এখন তো 1 lakh হয়ে গেছে always. Next question. There are no questions. So nice, wonderful. Suman, কি করলে গো? Question ই আসছে না।
Manoj, your deliberation was so clear that we don't have any question. It is all clear.
I think people have started leaving the platform.
তুমি তাহলে মনীষ তিওয়ারিকে তাহলে বলো ডেপুটি কনভেনর will give the vote of thanks.
No, all yours, sir, all yours.
No.
Carry on.
No. তুমি মনীষ will give the vote of thanks.
No, it was actually a very nice deliberation, and Manoj that took us to all the provisions, relevant changes, and he has drawn attention to specific provisions, how people are being affected this year, and he has also discussed about the relaxations given by Government of India. So it was indeed a wonderful session, and we look forward to invite him for other similar occasions where he can enlighten us from his knowledge. And thank you very much, Manoj.
Thank you.
And one thing I would like to say that since we are not giving a memento, we are unable to give a memento in a virtual meeting. So let us unmute ourselves and give a warm round of applause to Manoj Tiwari, please.
That's a wonderful gesture. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
And we intend to have our next meeting in the last week of August. We have many lockdown days in the last week of August. So we can have our next meeting in the last week of August. We'll fix up and then inform all the delegates. Thank you very much all for coming and attending and spending your valuable time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank
you,
to the
Manoj,
speaker, Manoj, for sparing his time, and thanks to all the other organizers also who have worked very hard to make this seminar, this virtual meeting a grand success with 100 participants.
Time and also ending on time. We have started on time, dot on time, and we're ending at dot of time. It is 3:58.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sumanda, I think you should stop the recording now.
Yeah.
Only thing is